All right, we'll get started right now. So welcome everybody. My name is Todd Terrazas, and I am the founder and executive director of the AILA community. So please welcome to the virtual Earth Summit 2021. First off, with some housekeeping rules. You can use the chat to chat with us or also with the panelists. Also, if you need closed captioning, you can use the closed captioning button at the bottom of the screen in Zoom. And if you need any assistance at all, please just use the chat to get our attention. And so, AILA is a nonprofit based here in Los Angeles with a global reach. Can you believe that there's actually 42 countries represented at this virtual summit? It's pretty amazing. AILA's mission is to accelerate innovation for social good and to develop the greater Los Angeles region into a responsible AI ecosystem. Since 2016, we have convened a cross-disciplinary group of academic and industry experts and the general public to explore the impacts AI and machine learning and other frontier technologies have on our personal and professional lives. Earth Summit began in 2019 as a 4-day in-person event with a human-centered design of breakouts, a panel discussion, and a 3-day hackathon. Now, because we can't meet in person this year, we decided to celebrate some brilliant scientists, technologists, and citizen scientists protecting our planet and the people, plants, and animals that call it home. Speaking of the planet, we'd like to thank Planet Labs for sponsoring Earth Summit 2021 and underwriting our costs so that we can offer this 2-day program free of charge to all of you. Planet Labs is the leading provider of global near-daily satellite imagery data and insights. You'll learn more about them soon, and we'll have a chance to meet some of the Planeteers at our happy hour at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time today. We have a fantastic team behind this 2-day event. Shout outs to Jorge Rafael for designing all of our beautiful flyers and our logo, Jay Velasco for social media support, Julia Anderson for web development, Lynette Coste for production, and Charlie Geraci for post-production. Now there is one person I haven't thanked yet. Someone who I've been working with since December to plan this event. That person is Emmy Lee. Emmy is our program manager intern from USC. She's currently a freshman, finishing up her first year studying computational mathematics. Now, Emmy is responsible for researching and developing all the content that you're going to indulge in today and tomorrow. And so I am super proud and honored to introduce to you Emmy Lee, who will be your MC for the remainder of the summit. Emmy?
Thank you so much, Todd. I couldn't have done this without you and the team, and it's been a true pleasure having the opportunity to help put this event together. I'd also like to thank Sandra Ponce de Leon for all her work with designing panels and Jim Cooper for all his help as well. And thank you to everyone for taking the time to attend to engage with these topics. Now more than ever, it's important that we each do our part to contribute to addressing the growing challenges of climate change. Earth Summit has personally provided the unique opportunity to meet the incredible speakers who will be sharing more about their incredible work and insight into the future of sustainability these 2 days. The effects of climate change, from raging wildfires to sea level rise, have revealed that there's so much more we can do to move toward a cleaner and healthier future, not just for ourselves, but also for the planet and all of its ecosystems. It's been truly inspiring to learn more about the founders, industry professionals, professors, investors, and more who are researching and developing advanced technological solutions to tackle such issues, as well as moving beyond the technology as well. I hope the conversations we have these 2 days will be just as inspiring for you and enable you to take what you hear today beyond this event moving forward as we take on one of the greatest challenges we have ever faced and recognize that each of us has a role in making a difference. This year's event is built around the 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Within each of these building blocks are different aspects of sustainability that connect with each other. The 5th component, heart, balances and ties the elements together, and it serves as a reminder of the need for equity as well as personal contribution when addressing climate challenges. Though Earth Summit will feature conversations on sustainability across the globe, we are seeing much progress in sustainable development being made right here in Los Angeles. To kick off an exciting 2 days of fantastic conversations, I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Gero, Chief Sustainability Officer of Los Angeles County. Mr. Gero was appointed the first Chief Sustainability Officer of LA County in 2016 and has since led the creation of a county-wide sustainability plan that centers on environmental and social justice issues. He previously served for 9 years as the president of the Climate Action Reserve, transforming it into the largest carbon offset registry in the North American carbon market, before serving as vice chair on the board of directors. Mr. Gero also served as Assistant General Manager for the Environmental Affairs Department and oversaw energy efficiency and renewable energy programs at the LA Department of Water and Power. With impressive career in local government and experience spanning across sectors, Mr. Gero has been a leader in moving the region forward toward greater sustainability, and we're delighted to be hearing from him today. It's my great pleasure to welcome Gero to Earth Summit. Mr. Gero, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, and thanks Emmy and Todd and JD and to the whole AI/LA team for including me in this event. I'm really excited to be here today, and excited to hear about all the interesting panels and discussions you're going to be having. I wish I could join for the full 2 days, but I'll start with the beginning, and I do have some slides to share, but before I do that, I want to start as we always do in the county's Chief Sustainability Office, which is to acknowledge and show our respect for the native lands on which we're having this event. I'm speaking to you today from Tongva territory, but we want to acknowledge and respect the Tongva, the Tatavam, the Chumash, the Quiche, and both their elders, as well as those that are still here today. These are lands that remain unceded by those tribes. So let me just pull up my deck here and we can get started. So, you know, when people ask me how I got into this line of work, and I've been doing sustainability or environmental work my entire career, starting in 1987, so for 35 years now. It really does go back to a child growing up here in Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, out in the smoggy San Fernando Valley, and distinctly remember those days when you couldn't see down the block and when you couldn't go out into the playground as a child. And I also am old enough to remember the very first Earth Day back in 1970. And of course, as a young child, the emergence of the environmental movement really affected me and put me on a path to make sure that the work that I did in my career was addressing the environmental impacts that we were having on the planet. So I was fortunate enough to have been named the county's Chief Sustainability Officer, and thanks, Emmy, for that introduction and pointing out that I'm the first Chief Sustainability Officer for LA County. And, you know, our role is a little unique in county government. We are a small office. There's 5 of us. We're in the county's Chief Executive Office. And we really serve as a coordinator, a policy think tank, if you will, an incubator, a planner, but we're not like some sustainability offices, an implementer. We don't operate programs. We really do rely on the good work of county departments to actually help implement our sustainability plan, which I'll talk about momentarily. As well as we rely on the cities within the region because we believe that these issues are in fact regional in scope and need regional solutions. And part of that, as you can see from the map here, of course, LA County is a big place. It's physically as big as the state of Connecticut with 10 million people. So one in 33 Americans live right here in Los Angeles County, and 1 in 4 Californians live here in Los Angeles County. And of course, it's very diverse. And it has 88 cities. All those little colored spots are individual unique cities within the county of Los Angeles. The big white spot is the city of LA, and then the gray areas are what are called unincorporated county, and that's the parts where we have some direct control. But as I was approached to take on this job, I really said to myself and to the board when they were going through the interview process that I felt that the role of the County of Los Angeles should be as a collaborator, a coordinator among the 88 cities, that we really need to take regional approaches. And that's because that's where most people live. Most people don't live in the big city of Los Angeles. There's 4 million people in the city of Los Angeles, which means there's 6 million people in all the other 87 cities and the unincorporated area. And the average size of a city is something on the order of 60,000 people. So it's like a city of Arcadia, for instance, is about that size, or Santa Monica, I think, is about 80,000. But those are the sizes of cities that people live in. In order to get to these issues, we really need to get to people where they live in those cities. And the reason why that's important is that, of course, pollution itself doesn't respect jurisdictional boundaries. If you think about things like transportation systems, about air quality, about stormwater, about climate change, of course, those are all regional or global in the case of climate change in scale. And so we really wanted to bring that approach to the work that we did in the Chief Sustainability Office. And the first thing we did, actually, interestingly, was before I was actually even hired, the board had given me an assignment, which was to create what's known as now as the Clean Power Alliance, which is a community choice energy program. And the county had been moving down the path to create this before my office was created. And the county staff had done really good technical work, gone forward to the board and said, we think we should create a new energy program, a new utility that can operate in unincorporated areas. And the board said, great idea, but why just unincorporated areas? Why don't we invite cities to join us and create a regional entity? And that's the assignment they gave me. And today that entity is serving 32 jurisdictions in LA and Ventura County, serving 3 million people. And 1 million of those people are actually receiving 100% renewable energy every single day. And that was really an example of the kind of a regional approach that the board wanted and that I wanted for this work. So let me, from there, just back up a little bit and talk about what does sustainability actually mean. And there's any number of definitions of sustainability. These are icons from the United Nations, their Sustainable Development Goals. Not all of them, obviously, because there's some numbers missing. But these are the kinds of things that go into the notion of sustainability. And there was actually a commission called the Brundtland Commission back in the 70s, very famous, came up with a definition that they've used or that the UN has used, which is sustainability means meeting the needs of today without diminishing the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's a really simple sentence, but really powerful. When you think about what does that mean? How do we meet our needs today without diminishing the ability of future generations? That means not depleting natural resources. That means actually protecting the natural resources. It means not destroying the planet, but actually protecting it and sustaining it. Another example or another definition of sustainability is the 3 E's, environment, economy, and equity. And what that means is that, of course, we're focused on environmental issues, but we are equally focused on ensuring that we have an economy that functions and that provides good jobs, sustaining wages for people, and that we're addressing issues of equity. And equity is critical. I appreciate Emmy having mentioned it in her opening as well. It's been at the core of the work that we've done in the Chief Sustainability Office. And so, we developed a sustainability plan. I have a short video I'd like to show if I can get the technology to work, but if not, then we'll bypass it. But when we set out to write a sustainability plan, we looked at sustainability plans from around, quite frankly, from around the world. And they all had a lot of very common elements, but they all also very much reflected the place where they were from. And a good example of that was the Baltimore sustainability plan that really focused on criminal justice reform. And you would think, well, how is criminal justice reform part of sustainability? But this was the issue that the community told the leaders in Baltimore was most critical to them, because they had gone through a horrible incidents of police brutality, the killing of an unarmed Black man, something we saw, unfortunately, again this week in Minnesota. But that became the rallying cry for their sustainability plan. So for us, when we went out and talked to people, homelessness became one of the top issues. And again, you wouldn't necessarily think of homelessness as a sustainability issue, but you can't have a sustainable community where you have 60,000 people living on the streets. And even just from a strictly environmental standpoint, the number one pollutant in the LA River is human waste. And so we have to make sure that we have good housing for people. So let me see if I can get this started.
Hey, Gary, there's no sound right now.
All right, well, I understand that maybe you didn't get the sound on that, so that's too bad. But there's some nice imagery anyway. And one of the things that we really wanted to point out there was the level of engagement that we undertook in order to develop our sustainability plan. Before we wrote a word of that plan, we went out and talked to people. And we asked folks to tell us what is important to you in your community from your expertise on the ground. How would you want to see this community, our Los Angeles community, become more sustainable? And it was really a listening, not telling sort of approach to the work. And we held more than 150 meetings. We hired 5 environmental justice organizations. We provided stipends to almost 100 community organizations to be able to come and participate in sessions and just share ideas with us. And we actually ended up meeting with over 1,000 people through this process and gathering some 6,000 ideas for what should be contained in the sustainability plan. Obviously, we couldn't put 6,000 things in the sustainability plan itself, so we really had to work hard to narrow it down. And we narrowed it down to 500, then we narrowed it down to the 150 or now 159 that are actually in the plan that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors. But after we wrote it, we went back out to the community for another 50 meetings and we said, we asked you what you thought was important, we listened, we think we heard you, but tell us, did we get it right? And that sort of real, true, authentic engagement in the community, understanding local issues, really led to a plan that was not only unanimously adopted by the Board of Supervisors, but 200 people showed up to speak in favor, including business community, labor, environmental organizations, environmental justice organizations, a whole range of folks showed up. So we're very proud of that sort of engagement and the fact that the plan reflects what actually the community wanted included. And one of the reasons why we took this, this deep equity approach is that within the County of Los Angeles, half of all of the census tracts that score the highest for highest pollution burden across the entire state of California, half of those census tracts are in Los Angeles County. We are a disproportionately overburdened part of the state, and LA County is struggling with issues related to environmental justice and has for a long time, and that's not by accident, right? When you think about the fact that 1 in 4 Black children today suffer from asthma, which is astounding and just plain wrong, that's not by accident. That's by deliberate design, historic legacy racist practices. And that kind of impact, when I say 1 in 4 Black children suffer from asthma, has cascading impacts on their entire family, on themselves. Of course, that means they miss days of school. It means their parents have to miss days of work to stay home with them. And so that affects their economic opportunities as well. So these are critical issues for Los Angeles. And just as an example of, and this is kind of we sort of randomly took a picture in Florence Firestone, but you can see auto dismantlers, manufacturing facilities adjacent to residential communities. And this is just not the way we should be designing our neighborhoods. And we don't allow this in other parts of LA County. It really is only in places where there are low-income communities and specifically communities of color. And we need to break free of this, our historic legacy, our racist past. And speaking of our racist past, these are actual redlining maps. These are places where institutions said was too dangerous, was too hazardous to loan money to people to buy houses or to insure them. And so we created this not by accident, but by design, and we need to undo it. It is a key feature of sustainability that we address things like racism, injustice, and equity. And that's why that was such a key component of our plan. So I realize I don't have a lot more time, so I'll go through quickly here. We're almost done, but I did want to talk about the plan itself a little bit. And of course, we set some really big targets. We want to be carbon neutral by 2045. We want to increase the tree canopy cover. And the question is, how do you get there? How do you get to carbon neutrality? Of course, 75% of all of our greenhouse gas emissions are in 2 sectors. Transportation, we drive a lot, we drive with fossil fuels, and on our buildings. And so we need to decarbonize both the transportation system and the building sector. And you do that to reduce demand for fossil fuel products. And if you start reducing demand, you also can really start reducing the production. And there's a lot of oil production, of course, in LA County. And so we need to work on both sides of the equation. But we do need to be careful of the workers. There are people who work in the fossil fuel industries have good sustaining wage jobs. And we need to make sure that as we transition away from the fossil fuel industry, we move those workers into other sectors, other clean sectors of the economy. We also, set a lot of targets around, of course, housing. I mentioned homelessness was a big issue. Part of our historic racist legacy is what's called exclusionary zoning, where you might call it single-family zoning, where in the past, and you can still see this in some communities, Pasadena is a prime example, where there are bungalow apartments adjacent to residential single-family homes. And that was not considered strange. That was natural. And then folks said, oh, we didn't want low-income people in our neighborhoods. And that was code for we didn't want people of color in our neighborhoods, and created single-family zoning so you couldn't have more density. We need to overcome that as well. And of course, we need to do a much better job with our water. So one thing we did in the plan is we collected a lot of data, and this might be of interest to all of you. I hope it is. I think there were almost 100 separate pieces of data that we collected, and we disaggregated as many of those as we could to the city scale, so that any city in the region could have its own set of baseline data. We also identified a lot of areas where data just didn't exist, and we created a memo called the Data Gaps Memo that hopefully will be a guide for researchers to help us get additional information. One thing I want to talk about in particular is work that we're doing around climate change, and particularly around heat. We're conducting a climate vulnerability assessment, and we're looking in that assessment at both how climate change, whether it's heat or wildfire or drought or extreme precipitation or coastal flooding or inland flooding, will affect our physical infrastructure, but importantly also how it will affect our social vulnerability. And this is a picture of, I think you probably recognize Clayton Kershaw. This was the World Series in 2018, the hottest World Series on record ever, played in Los Angeles that year. And when we're thinking about who is socially vulnerable, we think about things like outdoor workers. Not that professional athletes, even they are outdoor workers, are the outdoor workers we're thinking about, but we're thinking about folks who are, gardeners, who are warehouse workers, who are delivery drivers, who are most affected. Homeless people, of course, are affected by extreme heat. Low-income folks and those without access to mobility, so they can't actually get away from it. And the projections are just astounding. There are places in Los Angeles County where there are going to be more than 155 days per year that are over 95 degrees in temperature. That's almost half of the year where it's over 95 degrees. And it's not well known, but extreme heat is actually the most significant killer among all weather-related phenomena. Much more than hurricanes or tornadoes, heat kills, and it kills those who are least able to avoid it, who don't have air conditioning, who can't afford air conditioning, who have to work outdoors, who don't have the access to transportation or mobility to get out to someplace cooler, to the coast, or even to a cooling center. So it's significant, and this is a prime focus of my office these days, is to understand what these implications are of extreme heat, as well as wildfire and all the other climate hazards, and start to identify who is going to be most affected, so that we can develop strategies to adapt our communities as much as possible, as well, while we can concurrently, of course, try to get to the root cause of this, which is the emissions of greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil fuels. So we're very aggressive about trying to eliminate fossil fuel use throughout LA County within the next 25 years. So let me just close by, sort of ending where I started, which was talking about the first Earth Day and kind of growing up as a child, seeing this picture, for the first time ever, the first time we'd ever seen images from space of our planet, and really what inspires you to become an environmentalist. And one of the things I've learned over a course of a 35-year career is that what's really the most critical, what's really the most important, isn't the planet, isn't this beautiful image. It's the people who live on the planet. And when we work in sustainability, we're working in order to improve people's lives, to protect their health, to make them economically stronger, to create a more equitable society. And in total, is what makes us a more sustainable society. And so with that, I'll close and again say thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here today. It was a real pleasure. And I'm so sorry that the video didn't work, but hopefully you're inspired to go out and take care of people as you're thinking about your Earth Summit. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gero, for taking the time to speak with us today and share more with us about your work and about the Our County Sustainability Plan. It's truly wonderful and inspiring to see how these developments are paving the way toward a more sustainable and equitable future. As Mr. Gero mentioned, Los Angeles has also been making significant advancement in developing a transit system and plan that emphasizes sustainability as well as access to opportunity, which are especially crucial as urban areas grow.